everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Cloudcast. My name's Tyler Bauer. I have my esteemed colleague, Seth Ellertson. Say something funny, Seth.
I have nothing funny to say today, Tyler. I am
Really
all out
never
of funny
have anything
stuff.
funny to say.
Yes.
The sky is blue. Okay. We also have with us Nancy Teixeira. She is an industry veteran, has been a lot of cool places, done a lot of cool things, but I'm going to let her explain all of those things to you. Nancy, do you want to give us your origin story?
Absolutely. So Nancy Teixeira is absolutely the right pronunciation. I will go on the record as saying I intentionally mispronounce it because that's the way I was introduced to it when I met my future husband as a high school, in high school. So he introduced himself as Teixeira, and I have adopted Teixeira ever since. And it was that darned New York Yankee player, Mark Teixeira, that got everybody in the world to know how to say it the right way. So people are correcting me on my own name now, which is super fun. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I go by Nancy T. When in doubt, Nancy T. But Teixeira. I respond to all of them. So yeah, I've been in the ERP software industry for about, oh my goodness, like 28 years, 27 years, something like that. So I found my way to what was at the time a Great Plains VAR in the Toronto area in the spring of '98, and that was my first foray into the technology space, into ERP or financial accounting systems, and it was Great Plains software at the time. So started my career as a VAR, and it's funny that I've come full circle, and 28 years later, I'm back at a VAR. In between, I did some fun things. So I joined Microsoft a month after they acquired Great Plains software. So June of 2001 is when I joined. I wasn't grandfathered in. I joined as a Microsoft employee and stayed there for 10 years, all
Our
inside
friend
the
Tom Miller
dynamics.
then. Our
Oh my
friend
goodness.
Tom
Well,
Miller.
I know Tom
Shout out
from
Tom
Great
Miller.
Plains. Shout out Tom Miller. I know Tom from the Great Plains days, so pre-Microsoft, and then certainly during my tenure at Microsoft as well. So yeah, a decade there, all inside of the Dynamics business unit. So had a lot of opportunity to go do other things, but I made it quite clear to anybody that was asking that my passion was ERP. I really found it incredibly challenging and rewarding to be working with a product that really was, in my estimation, a strategic sale. So, the joke I would often make is, love SQL Server, but if I die never knowing how to license or sell it, I'll die happy. Like there's no, I'm not drawn to it. Love Xbox, don't need to work in that department. So the way I was able to navigate my career across 10 years, because there is a lot of pressure to do new things when you're at Microsoft, the way I was able to get around that desire to move me into other things is I took on different areas of responsibility. So I was at one point channel management, got into product marketing, which is a whole other topic for another day for us to talk about. But product marketing done well, and Microsoft does it very well, is probably the most challenging job at a company. I'll go on the record as saying that. So learned a ton doing that. The sales, Seth is saying sales. No way. I've been in sales, Seth, and I'll tell you, product marketing is tricky, done well. And then was responsible for the overall field marketing organization for Microsoft Canada as it relates to Dynamics. And then my final role there was heading up what was still a burgeoning CRM go-to-market. So ran the CRM sales organization for the last couple of years that I was there. And then eventually found my way to Sage. Spent about 8.5 years at Sage doing a variety of roles, both in Canada and the US. Most recently left 2 years ago, and my role was head of channels. So had a team of about 130 400 million in ARR, and just an amazing team, an amazing partner ecosystem. And now here I am in the partner ecosystem. So full circle moment.
Shout out Sage. Well, so that's really cool. So coolest thing that you got to do at Sage. I'm putting you on the spot.
Coolest thing I got to do at Sage, I'll say it was a business meeting, but I took advantage of going to a part of the world that I probably wouldn't have gone to on my own. Nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't on my bucket list per se, but there was an X3 conference in Dubai. And that was, my first trip to Asia. It was my first time in the Middle East. It was just an incredible, so the conference was great. But I'll say I hung out with a few partners because we love partners. So I got to stay an extra few days was we kind of did an Airbnb thing and did a desert safari, rode a camel, did like the crazy, Jeep through the, open air Jeep through the desert there. Just super, super fun. A memory that I'll hold on to forever. But yeah, and it was great to experience it with friends because the partners did become friends of mine. So it was a great experience. And I thank Sage for that amazing opportunity.
So cool. So how did we get to here? What brought us to Net at Work? What's your role now?
Yeah,
Aside from
interesting.
the
So,
amazing people here,
well,
that's
that,
the
of
obvious.
course, that's the obvious. So I left Sage, as I mentioned, 2 years ago, and did a brief stint. I mean, brief, shorter than I would have intended. An organization that again looked great, looked like a great opportunity on paper. Ended up not being the best fit. Nobody's fault, but I knew it wasn't right for me, so I kind of pulled the chute on that. Was kind of taken a moment to breathe and figure out what I want to do next. And Net at Work, of course, had just taken on private equity backing in September of 23. And Alex approached me and said, hey, we're able to accelerate this role that I'm excited to talk to you about. I said, what is it? And he said, we really need someone to focus on M&A, so corporate development role. And I kind of went, that sounds really interesting because throughout my career, both at Sage and at Microsoft, I've been part of the teams that integrate a business in. So once it's been acquired, I would be part of the integration team, but I had never been involved in the front end. I had never been involved in sourcing and due diligence and valuation and deal structure and all the things, and thought that's super interesting. And what an amazing gift to be with this much silver hair at this stage in my career and learning, which is what I do every single day. So I think I've now been in role about 15 or 16 months. And I'll tell you, I think I can spell M&A now, but I'm still learning a lot every single day. And that's a real gift. But yeah, my focus here is helping Net at Work to grow inorganically through mergers and acquisitions. So Seth and the amazing sales team, are driving the organic growth, and I'm helping on the inorganic side.
Super cool. What an amazing journey to go from managing and helping partners grow at the publisher
Mm-hmm.
side to, I mean, sort of the next evolution for that partner, right? In their journey to potentially be considered for M&A.
Absolutely.
Yeah, super, super cool. And I think that's a great segue into kind of our topic today, which is really around what we're seeing now, which is a massive consolidation of the ERP VAR, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing companies joining forces, we're seeing businesses exiting, we're seeing complete shifts in strategies and structures, and very exciting stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all very positive and exciting for the community. I think today we want to talk about what to look for, right, in a new partner, maybe some things to look out for,
Mm-hmm.
and also, what's next, right? So a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
probably thinking about, their business that they've built and really how that can live on, and being able to partner with the right organization, I think, is absolutely critical. Shout out
Mm-hmm.
LMP.
For
See
those
what I
that
mean?
don't
See what I
know,
mean about Tyler asking his questions, Nancy?
Yeah. Hey,
but for those that don't know, LMP Level Minute Partners is our private equity backing.
they're great. They're great. Anyway, so
I would love to hear from Nancy of like
yeah.
before we get into that, like like you've been doing this for 25 years. That's
Yeah.
your words, not mine. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
aging you.
Yep. Yep.
What's the difference between the channel 25 years ago and the channel today?
My
What are you seeing as
goodness.
the difference?
Yeah. So first, let's talk about what's the same. What's the same is the level of passion and drive for excellence, and really wanting to help customers, to help the clients. I think that's consistent from way back when, from the late 90s to today. You've still got people who are in this for the right reasons. They're trying to help their customers, drive more efficiency, be more productive, get a really solid ROI, and develop systems and tools that help them have a competitive advantage, right? I think that's consistent, right? So that's all still there. What I'll say is different is as I look at the DNA of the typical boutique, let's call it a boutique VAR partner from the late 90s into the early 2000s, even into the, say 2010-ish era, right? What I would say there is that those VARs were typically formed by what I lovingly call reformed accountants, right? So I'm a CPA. I either worked for a firm, in practice, or I worked in industry as a controller, as a VP finance, as a CFO. In all cases, I bring this real muscle for accounting to the table, right? I'm an accredited accountant. I'm a CPA, but I just don't get jazzed about that anymore. I think I might like to try something different. And they found their way into consulting for accounting systems, for what we now call ERP. And they built these amazing firms and they got into the resale of software and the delivery of accounting systems to mid-market clients. So that, I think, was very much the MO of most boutique VARs when I started out in the industry. And I'll say right up until of the 2000. Now, what I'll say is a lot more technologists, a lot more pure play. I'm an IT I'm really thinking about the tech. Also, I think a lot more sort of broad thinking and broad knowledge around the ancillary solutions that really light up the ERP, right? So, looking at Seth, and I know his team not only has, the Sage ERPs and Acumatica and NetSuite, but they also have these third parties, these ISV solutions that really light up the situation, whether they're industry specific or broadly horizontal, like BI or accounts payable automation or what have you, credit card processing, the things that really light up with bells and whistles the value of the ERP software. So I think today there's probably a little more of that broader thinking around a technology solution, not just the core ERP. But I think that's the biggest shift that I've seen, is sort of the shift away from pure play accounts, which is maybe a good thing. As we think about statistically, there's a lot less CPAs graduating, becoming CPAs today than there were 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. That is rapidly declining. And I think the industry itself is trying to address the requirement. So I don't have the stat at the top of my head, but there's like so many hours, call it, I'm going to make it up, 300 hours that they have to work in, audit, like articling with, the equivalent of, a lawyer coming up in the ranks and stuff in order to get their CPA. I've heard, and I've been part of some events where the AICPA I'm heard is looking at, do we shrink that down, because we have to make this a more appealing career
Lower the
choice
barrier
for
to entry.
totally 100%. Yeah. So it will be interesting to watch that. But I think, between the software and the automation and all the, the way the tech has really caught up and made it so you don't have to be a super, super deep accounting expert to implement accounting systems. And, I just out of a point of curiosity, I wonder if we were to speak to our practice directors, how many of the consultants, managers, et cetera, in the X3 and 100 and 300 and Intech, NetSuite and Acumatica practices, how many are accountants, versus if you asked Alex and Eddie and the team, 10, 15 years ago, I bet you there were a lot more accountants on the, on the payroll.
I think you're right. I think it's almost become the accounting piece of ERP is almost table stakes anymore, and the systems do that very well, and it's sort of, and now it's the ERP where it's like you said, it's the things that light that up, the auxiliary things that are really the drivers, the business drivers for a lot of companies.
Totally.
So 20 years ago, great stuff. I mean, I was 5 years
Last time Tyler's
12.
haircut was cool.
12.
Yeah, it was 12. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. But I think in today, like, what's the opposite look like? Like you started to hit on kind of what that next gen leadership looks like, and does that factor into some of the intimidation of trying to find the right partner to take the business forward because of all of these, not even just within ERP, but outside of ERP even, right? AI, security, all of these things that are impacting just how businesses are run and the liabilities it takes on.
Totally, Tyler. So I think, as I think about what I keep referring to as the shifting sands of the ERP mid-market space in general, there are a number of market dynamics that are really shaping the way that ERP VARs and systems integrators at large operate and collaborate and consolidate. And I think there's some major trends and forces that will continue to really influence M&A activity and shape the market really for years to come, in my estimation. So I would probably bucket it into four, and you can stop me anywhere along the way because I know I can ramble a bit. But the first we touched on is the consolidation. You talked about it right at the outset, Tyler, the consolidation of the VAR landscape. So why? Well, first of all, what is it? And second of all, why? So the first, what is it, is that larger VARs are acquiring smaller VARs, right? And this is nothing new, but the pace at which it's happening is actually really picking up. And so that's one element. The other what is where a VAR is acquiring specialized competencies. And this touches on something else that you were talking about. So if I don't have, I don't know, a vertical specialization, I might be acquiring for that. Or if I, see that, that AI is coming and I don't really have those skill sets, I might be acquiring for that. Maybe I want to get into IP development, but that's not a muscle that I've really had to flex before. You might be able to mitigate some risk by buying someone who's been in the business of delivering and packaging software. And then the other reason for VAR consolidation or VARs buying VARs might be regional expansion, right? So I primarily operate in the US and now I want to operate in Canada or another part of the world. So that might drive that as well. So that's part of the just general overall consolidation, right? But if I take a step back and think about, so why would a VAR even be open to selling themselves, to selling their baby, right? Their life's work, right? And so I think there's a couple of drivers there. There's the technological element that we keep touching on. One is the need to adopt a cloud native solution, right? So if you're sitting on sort of a legacy ERP platform that's been in the market since the late 90s, right? It's great and it's paying the bills and it's still serving those customers, and you always want to love the customers where they're at, right? You never want to be forcing them to move to something else if what they're using serves them well. But it's also not for the faint of heart. Like if you are, and I think we can all, like, without any kind of disparaging, tone at all, we can all see that the ERP VAR channel is an aging channel, right? They're aging out. And so to be in your 50s or 60s, right? And think about bringing on a cloud native solution when you haven't brought one on yet, that's very daunting. I think, we used to talk about it's a seven-figure investment to stand up an ERP practice, right? Let's say that's super aggressive. Let's even call it 500,000. Just, again, if you're in your late 50s, 60s, that might not be a pill you're ready to swallow, right? But you know that you need that in your portfolio to be competitive in the market and to keep, sustain your business and keep it going and grow your business. So it's a real inflection point. Do I want to make that huge investment, or do I want to combine forces with someone who's already made those investments? And so that is also driving some of the timing around, being open to a sale. And even if it's not cloud native we're talking about, the need to at least offer a multi-cloud or a hybrid, right? Shout out to Cloud at Work, right, Tyler? And these
Shout out
are
Cloud at Work.
Shout out Cloud at Work. And these are some of the technological thoughts that might trigger maybe it's time for me to be thinking about selling my business. And then the third,
Can I jump in right
shout,
there? So you said something there, and I kind of want to flip it a little bit, right? Because with the consolidation of these VARs, you now are seeing, I think, big players within the publisher space. Like, so the publishers are now attracted towards these bigger producers.
Yep.
And so if you're not attached to that, or can keep that same level of, let's say, gains, that can impact you in other ways, right? It can impact you the other way, right?
100%. And so, so you're touching on, one of the other buckets of, major trends and forces that are shaping this landscape and the shifting sands, and that is ERP publisher ecosystem changes. Because in some cases, the ERP publisher is driving a move towards consolidation. In some cases, they want fewer, larger partners, right? And they might be very overt with that desire. And I'm looking straight at Microsoft when I say that, where, they're being very clear. Look, this is a master VAR, and we want you to all work your licensing through that master VAR. We have no interest in, I'm definitely paraphrasing, this is not their words, it's mine, but outside looking in, because it's been a long time since I've worked at Microsoft, it feels like they would rather not work with very small partners. They would rather have them fulfill their licensing needs for their Dynamics, customers through a master VAR, through a larger VAR. But even if they're not so overt with that, and I'm not going to name specific publishers here in my next comment, but even if they're not as overt as, say, a Microsoft is being with that, I would say that we all probably see that there are a number of partner programs in the market today where there are growth requirements or super aggressive sales volumes in terms of achieving tier. And so what
Goalpost
they're
keeps moving, right?
the goalpost keeps moving, right? So if you can't not only perform at this level, but perform at this level and show growth, you're going to take a hit in terms of your margins, right? So that in and of itself, having sort of that pressure to not only perform very, very well and be very active, but also grow from prior period, that also would potentially drive, hey, I'm either going to see my margins continue to shrink, or I will think about joining forces with a larger partner that's at that higher margin level, and that might, push the accelerate the move to sell the business, right? And then there's the shifting portfolios thing, right? Where, if again, touching back on some of the, you have to either hire the skill set or acquire the skill set or sell because you're not prepared to do either of those things. But you think about things like hosting and AI and advanced analytics and all of those specialty kind of skill sets and technologies that a smaller VAR or an aging VAR might not have the wherewithal, might not have the desire to go and build, at this stage in their life.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I think it was probably I've been doing this a while too. I don't know, 5 to 7, maybe you could even maybe say 10 years ago, a lot of the large publishers changed their programs. It used to be if you did X amount of revenue with us, you were at these tiers. And now it's X amount of revenue plus NCA growth or specifically NCA revenue or growth tiers on top of that. I think the publishers have really changed what those programs are, which is really driving the growth that they want to see. And not every partner in the ecosystem is up for that type of challenge. And you couple that with some of the changing ERP applications in the marketplace today, and I think that's created some of this market dynamic that we're seeing.
100%, just because not everybody might know the 3-letter acronym, so NCA, new customer acquisition, right? And all guilty as charged. I was at Sage when we introduced.
I think you created that program at Sage.
I did. I added. So we had our total revenue targets, and then we added a gate, which was of that. Let's just make up a number of the $1 million of total revenue. Like 300,000. Again, I'm making up numbers. Needs to be a new customer acquisition or new logo oriented, right? And that was really a way to say we need to align. If Sage's growth ambition is X, how do we align partner growth ambition to be there alongside us, especially in a world where your only go to market is through partners? Like that is your sales channel, and it's your virtual sales force. So it's super important. I can't give you a quota. You're not on my payroll, but I can give you a target to hit that motivates you to do more of what we'd like you to do.
Right, using the carrot and the stick a little bit.
Carrot and stick. That's it.
What about technology from the other side? And curious if you think this is a driver as well, but traditionally we've been, as a collective, servicing and creating customer experiences based on an hour of time. So through AI and automation that these larger firms have, the ability to go and access to create more efficient ways to service organizations. Do you think that the overall customer experience could actually drive change, for just customers yearning for something like that, and maybe customers seeing their peers or others in their industry getting this type of service and not being able to get that from their current partner, from someone?
Yeah, you touch on something super important, right? Which is that as technology advances, as customers feel perhaps more empowered through AI to, well, do I really need to be paying someone $250 an hour to do this? Like, I'll just type into chat GPT and see if I can do it myself, right? So herein lies the conundrum, right? Because you certainly want to leverage the tools and tech that will make you more efficient, that'll, provide a better total cost of ownership and a quicker ROI and stuff. And this is where I think the importance as an ERP VAR becomes, how do we elevate the work that our people do? How do we elevate that human work that AI can't do? So AI they're already very, very good at many things, and it will just exponentially get better very, very quickly, right? Because that's just how technology works. But I think it really allows us, and I, certainly value your two, Tyler and Seth, your opinions on this, but I think it really allows us to truly become management consultants, to truly start deliver change management, like all that strategic stuff that you're not going to get from tools and tech. You're not going to get that from ChatGPT. You're going to get that from real world people with real world experience that are going to be able to have you really think about, we've always done it this way. Yeah, but is that the best way to do it? Like, let's talk this through, right? And then really how to drive change through an organization. These are things, again, that the tools and tech, they're going to do they're going to deliver the make busy. Like, I'm not trying to dumb it down, but I mean that strategic element, that how do you really see your business growing, and do you have all the right skills and talent and strategy and all of that to do? Like, that's where I think VARs can really start to differentiate and step up their game, and not just become I'm implementing accounting software and here's the 5 steps I follow. I think that will soon, I don't know how soon, what is it, like maybe 2 to 4, 3 to 5, I don't know, through AI, that will diminish, right? The
Yeah.
availability of being able to do time and the whole time and materials will probably go away as well. And I'm sure Ed Kless is somewhere going, yes, it's gone away. We're selling your smarts. We're selling services as a subscription. We're not doing time and materials.
But all of that evolves. Look at the difference between when VAR started selling cloud-based software, right? They say, oh, there's no more implementation. Your implementation goes away. The VARs can't make any money because implementation doesn't exist. And yes, we don't have to physically install it on a server anymore, but you still have to go through the process to, quote, implement the application, meaning
Mm-hmm.
configure it for your business, modify it for best practices, build all the workflows, do all the training, right? Help them with all the reports, right? Do all of that type of work. So I think even the shift from on-premise to cloud-based software, yeah, partners just shifted what they were doing for
Exactly.
implementation. And I think AI, to your point, I think is going to drive the same thing. Yes, we're probably not going to do some of the mundane tasks that we used to do in an implementation. Hopefully that will allow folks like us to do the higher value tasks
Mm-hmm.
for that customer. So it'll be really
Totally.
interesting as we
I
see this
think
change.
I think that we're becoming a consumer base of experiences, not necessarily things. And those experiences have different components of AI, automation, people, process, tech. Taking it back to the VAR from 20 years ago, selling that hour.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, you mentioned launching a new ERP division costing $1 million to
Mm-hmm.
$500,000. And I think you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right. But now pair that with having to shift to change your experience model away from that time and materials. That can be undoable. I mean, it literally can be
100.
undoable to get away
100.
from
Yeah.
utilization of an hour towards
Yeah.
utilization of an experience,
Yeah.
and using tech and AI and tools and how to do that.
100%. I mean, I think, you've got the Ed Klesses of the world and Ron Bakers who have been trying to push ERP VARs for the last probably 10 plus years to say, stop with the time and materials, like sell services as a subscription, which means you're going to be underwater for a good chunk of time in a new implementation because you're paying your people and you're not collecting commensurate revenues from the customer because they're paying you on a monthly, whatever basis. But if you can if you can withstand that period of being underwater, eventually you'll be making money hand over fist. Not all partners can withstand that period because it's probably, for the first 2.5 years, you might be not profitable on that customer implementation because the monthly service revenues you're getting in haven't caught up yet. But when they do, you're no longer, so you did the work early on. Now you're just reaping the benefits of this monthly revenue you're making, but not everybody has the financial wherewithal to be able to, they don't have the cash flow to weather that storm, right?
There's certainly a dip, but it's even different than that. In it changes your hiring process. It
Mm-hmm.
changes, everything, because you have to be working the opposite end of how can I, if I have this lemon, it's not how
Mm-hmm.
can I get 5 or 6 more lemons. It's how can I make sure every single drop of juice gets out of that lemon,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that way the business is successful, because it's a race against time. Certainly converting to that model, you're going to see a dip, right? You're going
Mm-hmm.
to see a dip into the red. But the more that you're bought in, the more that you commit to that, the faster that you'll get to the black, right?
Agreed.
The longer you keep your toes half in the water, and you don't fully commit, that's just, you're just elongating your period in the red. And that to me is a cultural shift.
Agreed.
No, it's still not. You would think that it's changed, but it's massive. You have
It's
employees
massive,
that
and
work with
it's
you for
still the
25 years.
minority. Like if
Yeah.
I look across the entire ecosystem, and this isn't just a Sage comment or an Acumatica comment or a Microsoft comment, in general, there's a very, very small percentage that have moved to that mindset. Because to your point, you got to be all in. If you're going to do it, you can't dip your toes in the water. You go all in, right? But I get that it's scary because you're not profitable for a while.
As an operator of a recurring business, I can tell you the water's nice over here. It's very nice.
Nancy, you mentioned, I think the first thing you talked about was that the consolidation is picking up, the pace of that consolidation is picking up. I think you mentioned one reason that the population of VARs, of partners, is aging. What do you think are other reasons behind the consolidation speeding up?
Beyond aging population, which by the way, I think there were probably a lot of owners that thought, oh, this is going to be my legacy. My kids are going to want to take over the business. And the kids are going, nah, not even a little bit interested.
Nobody's kids wants to take over their accounting business, their parents' accounting businesses.
Exactly. So aging, we talked about the tech, right? Do you have the appetite to take on the new tech that you'd be required to take on to stay competitive and, and grow and continue to sustain your business? And then the third big area that we haven't touched on yet is PE. So PE has completely changed the chemistry in the overall partner ecosystem for many reasons, not the least of which is it's really shaping the way deals are done, the way deals are structured. And they've got a lot of cash that they're throwing. It's kind of really upset the apple cart in terms of, historically the way most, I'd venture to say, the lion's share of ERP VAR acquisitions over the last 20 years, most of them have probably been in a more traditional earnout model. So, where the deal is done over time with a rev share model. And I'll say that PE has kind of flipped that thing on its head. And so there's a lot of cash being exchanged, and still probably some really good deals being made. Sometimes I think with some of the PE that's getting involved in this space, they don't yet know enough about our business that we know so well. So there are deals, quite frankly, that we've walked away from because, we don't want it to be a race to the bottom. We're not going to throw crazy money at something just to acquire a business. So there's a little bit of that happening where I think the dust will eventually settle. I think PE will get better at valuations and doing good deals, and it just means it's a super competitive space right now. But here's where the comfort part of that comment comes in, and where the optimism comes in, because I could feel all doom and gloom, like, oh, this PE is going to throw this crazy money at people and I'm never going to be successful at acquiring a business. On the contrary, I think that what I've learned in my 15, 16 months in role is that chemistry is critically important, right? Especially if the seller is wanting to continue in the business, right? So the owner seller wants to stay on, but even if they don't want to stay on, they deeply care about their people. They want their people to be in a good environment, right?
And their customers.
And their customers, absolutely. And so I think that, finding a good home where there's like cultural values in general, that chemistry, I can't stress enough, is super, super important. And again, sometimes we've walked away from deals because we're just not sure that, members of the selling team are going to be a good fit for the network environment. And we really have to preserve the value of the culture we've built, and we don't want something that's going to upset that and put it at risks. So yeah, I think there's plenty of deals to be had. Doing the right deals is super important. You want customers that are going to stay on and be happy, and that we can serve well. You want talent that's going to come on and fit really well in the team and make us better, and we make them better, and offer people a great opportunity to grow their careers at Net at Work. And for the sellers, the owners that want to stay on, we want to land them a great role where they can contribute. And this is maybe a good time to talk about our process. So when we're in talks to do a deal, and we're it's clear we are moving towards a deal happening, one of the really important conversations we have with the owners is, are you interested in staying on? Are you interested in building something with us? And if the answer is yes, then we really get into the talk of a line of questioning that says, what do you love to do? What do you hate doing, but you have to do it because you're the owner of your company and stuff? And you quickly get to a place where you start to understand that they really love selling, or they really love architecting solutions, or they really love customer service, or what have you. But, maybe they hate the administrative, or they hate working with the publisher in some cases, or they hate, whatever it is. And so again, this is where I think people, the human element, becomes such an important part of the deal. It's not just about who's writing the biggest check. It's about who really cares about making this a successful integration post merger and acquisition.
One of the things that you've told me sort of in our many discussions about this offline was that you sort of didn't realize or underestimated like the emotional side of the getting ready to join a company or sell my company. Tell us a little bit more about what you've learned over the past 18 months on that topic.
So you nailed it. What I've learned is that I am not in control of the deal, even if the best deal possible is presented to a seller. And why? Because even at the 11th hour, even at the 11 and a half hour, they can decide, I'm not there. I'm not there. And I'll tell you, I took the time to really try to get some education on M&A in general. So I've done a couple of online courses, and in there's modules around really coaching the seller to say, what is the emotional, what is the psychological element, and are you checking in with yourself to make sure that you are there,
that you're ready for this,
that you're ready. Exactly. Because again, this is your life's work. And if there's any question, so if you're looking to fully exit, then that's even trickier, because then like they're doing a deal and knowing that that's putting them out of
they're walking away from something they've been doing for 40 years, for instance.
Totally. And in the case where the flip side of that, they want to stay on, but they haven't had a boss in 40 years. Now they have a boss, right? Like these are big things to contemplate and to think about. And so I have had to become very comfortable with knowing that, I can be, forecasting a deal closing, till the cows come home, and literally at the 11th hour, the rug could be pulled out. And I have to respect that, because again, this is their baby. And
it's business, but it's also very personal.
Very personal. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Very cool. And I agree, as an emotion first guy, I concur.
You? No.
Yeah. Very, very emotional. So look, we're almost out of time. So let's end it with a little nugget for our listeners who maybe are there, right? Maybe there's somebody listening who owns a business and is looking to get the most out of it. Mm-hmm. So we covered a lot of different things of what to look for in chemistry and the right partner, and maybe some things to look out for. Obviously, how private equity has impacted that. Don't assume that it's just an impact or just an earn out. Don't assume that you won't have a role in the organization going forward, because that's not the case anymore. What are some things proactively that you think some of
I love that question.
these companies could do to make life easier and or possibly even increase their valuation?
Yep. Love that question. So on the preparedness, I would say don't underestimate for a second how incredibly important it is to have your ducks in a row. And by ducks in a row, I mean, let's hope it's not the cobbler whose kids don't have shoes, right? So you're selling accounting systems. please get your accounting, please get your financial statements in order, because it will come up sooner rather than later. In a sale of a company, there's going to be a due diligence process. Typically, like for Net at Work, we outsource it to an advisory firm that does that for us. They're very methodical in the approach, but they need the raw data. They need access to the systems. So make sure that your financial statement, that you're doing your trial balances, ideally monthly, right? That you are, you have the last 2 or 3 years worth of income statements, P&Ls. We're going to need all that, balance sheets. Really make sure that you are able to articulate in a very clear way on your professional services, on your consulting organization, your utilization rates, your profitability by project. And all of those things are going to come up in due diligence. We need to talk about those things because it's super important to how we structure a deal. What else? My favorite thing, so I'll end on this note, is during one of the courses that I took, moderator, the person teaching the course, told a story, an anecdote, and it stuck with me. And I'm not going to do it justice, but I'm going to try my best. And she talked about, that what's the right time to sell your firm. And she brought up the analogy of going to the store to buy bananas. And when you're going to the store to buy bananas, if you're looking for a banana that you're going to take home that day, chop it up and put it in your cereal. I just had some cereal earlier today with a banana on it. Then what you want is the perfectly ripe yellow banana, right? Because if it's too green, you're not going to be able to eat it that day, or it's not going to be very pleasant if you eat it that day. And if it's too brown, obviously, it's not super appealing either, right? So how do when your business is at that prime moment of ripeness, right? And I think this takes a lot of, again, hand to heart introspection, right? Because everybody thinks their baby is beautiful, and everybody's baby is beautiful, but really look at it and go, if I'm sitting on all legacy, application customers, and I haven't, made the leap into cloud native, yes, there's absolute value in the business you're selling, but understand it's not going to have as much value per se as somebody that's got some of the newer technologies in their portfolio, right? So, but the longer you sit on it, the more your banana is getting brown. And I think we can all agree that a super, super brown banana is good for one thing, and that's making banana bread, right? So, which is fine because that has value if you want banana bread, right? But because it's a
Shout out
one
banana bread.
value, shut out
Shout
banana
out
bread.
banana bread.
Yep. And so I think there the lesson is be realistic with where your banana is today, and if it's yellow to
There's a
brown,
great talk track right there.
there you go. And if it's yellow transitioning to brown, you might want to be thinking about going into market and selling your business, because this is your life's work and this is something that you've built. And if you sit on it too long and it gets too brown, it's diminishing in terms of the overall value, and you've built this amazing asset. So get the most for that asset that you possibly can. And on the converse side, and then conversely, so we were dealing with one about a year ago, and the owner said, I know I'm not where I need to be yet. I know that, if I just pour X into it, it's going to become so much more profitable. And that's very, very true. But it's also a point of inflection where you go, okay, so am I prepared to put another 300,000, 500,000 into it to get how much more on a deal
What period
value?
of time? Yeah.
In what period of time, right? And there's a point of elasticity in that model that says, okay, I might get 10% less selling it today, but I'm also not going to put 5% more in terms of cost into getting it there, right? So
Into maybe getting it there.
and maybe getting it there, exactly.
All
And
right.
that's all I have to say about that, Tyler.
You heard it here first. Don't let your
That's all I
banana go
got to
brown.
say about that. Yeah. Nancy's famous last words. I love it. Well, listen, Seth, any closing remarks?
I just want to comment that Nancy's probably never seen one of Tyler's baby pictures because, you mentioned everybody's baby's beautiful.
That
You
banana's
missed the
way
joke.
brown.
I
Yeah.
always he looked like a little brown banana, but
I was
I didn't know
not
where you were going with that.
I was a cute baby.
I'm sure you were. Who's
Yeah.
not? Well, I've seen a couple.
Come on. Seth's baby picture is him trying on a suit in the Macy's
Oh my God.
Macy's dress.
I did have it. J.C.
Funny
Penney's
story.
Sears suit.
Sears?
Were you born, Seth? Were you born bald, or were you born with hair? Oh, I'm asking them. No, I'm not. I'm asking really, like, because some babies are born with a lot of hair. Were you born with hair, or were you born bald?
I was born fairly bald. Yes,
Fairly bald. Okay,
going to leave the world
full
the same
circle.
way I came into it.
So
Yes.
full circle moment for you.
The best one yet. I
Oh my
love it.
goodness.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your
Of course.
time. Great insight. I learned a ton. Nancy, really appreciate it. You got to
My
come
pleasure.
back. Come back and we'll do another episode together. But
Sounds good.
anybody who's listening out there, you know, if you need advice, I've known Nancy for many, many years. Reach out, talk to Nancy. She's a trustworthy person. She cares. She has empathy. And
Except when I ask people if they were born bald.
yeah, or if I have an ugly baby picture,
Yeah.
but it's all good.
I think on a closing note, the last thing that I will add, and Nancy, you've mentioned this to me before in our conversations, it's worth having, if you are considering determining how ripe your banana is, let's stay with that analogy for a while, it's certainly worth having lots of conversations, including a conversation with Nancy.
Yeah.
You'll find that everybody has a little bit different approaches, different styles, and you have to find the right one that's fit for your banana.
That's right.
Love it. Well, thank you all. Really appreciate it. And as always, go Birds.